So, like I told you before, I've been going through this program, an audio program called the Einstein Factor.
Okay.
And there's one of the exercises that they do in this is called image streaming. And this correlates to strengthening that part of your brain that when you have a dream, you can remember it when you wake up.
All right. So tell me what is the definition of image streaming according to this book?
When you're image streaming, you close your eyes and you either have a friend or someone there or you have a recorder and you describe a mental picture, just the mental pictures that are flashing through your brain.
Okay.
And you just go into describing the details of it, like textures, colors, surface, like anything you can visualize.
All right.
And you could even tell a story. And as you're doing this, you are strengthening this part of your brain that is going to be able to recall details.
All right. That's science.
And so since I've been doing this, I will dream and I'll wake up and I'll remember details about my dream. Like, just an example, I remembered a bumper sticker in my dream that was yellow.
Okay.
I remember a lot more details about a dream since I started doing this. And I mean, I'll remember the dream too, but it's amazing to me to remember specific details like that.
Right.
And I used to tell people that, talking about dreams, that I believe dreams are coming from the subconscious or a supernatural dream that's like a heavenly dream or a dream from God or a dream from demonic forces.
I've heard of people who have dreams, and it's this sort of like clairvoyance, where they kind of can see events before they happen.
Right.
I've heard of that a lot of different times. So I mean, I think there is something there to be tapped into.
So I believe these three things, uh, that this in this sort of nature of these type of dreams. And one thing I would tell people is that if you remember your dream, that's a sign or that's a chance that the dream is a supernatural dream, because things from the spirit world would be more intense than the natural realm.
Okay.
And so if it's that intense enough for you to remember it, then there's a good chance that it could be supernatural.
All right. Vision streaming.
But the thing is, that's what I would say before. But now, from this perspective, it is possible to do things like image streaming that is going to strengthen, kind of like working out, strengthen that part of your brain that you would be able to remember more
All right.
about your dream. So, in other words, most people going through life are not reinforcing this ability that they have to remember dreams, so they naturally forget dreams.
Right.
And then it's only when they have a really intense dream, like a nightmare or something else, that they actually remember it. And I think for the normal person, that statement probably is true. That if it's that intense enough for you to remember it, then it probably is a good chance it's supernatural. But if we're talking about somebody who's getting into strengthening this part of their brain, then I don't think that's true anymore. I think that they'll remember all kinds of dreams that their subconscious mind is giving them,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be able to like make all these observations about it,
Right.
like we're talking about stage 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So vision streaming is a device to remember dreams.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Another. So this gets into lucid dreaming. and I'm sure people probably know all about like a lot
I don't
about
know.
this.
I don't. I've heard of lucid dreaming. I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, so when you're lucid in a lucid dream and you're aware that you're dreaming,
Okay, yeah, I've had this plenty of times.
right? But so like a lot of people, just when they're awake, they'll look down at their arm and say, "Is this a dream?" And then they'll like pinch their arm and be like, "Ouch, that really hurts. This must not be a dream." And they just do that, from day to day, like every day. And then one night when they're dreaming, they look down at their arm and they're like, "Is this a dream?" And then they're like, "Oh, that doesn't hurt." Or whatever, maybe it does hurt, but they're like, "Actually, this is a dream." And then they realize the first step, realizing that they're dreaming, and then that they start doing that more and more.
What, having lucid dreams?
Yeah, just more like automatic instead of like having to go through that first stage of
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging that it's a dream to more like automatic where you just start dreaming and then you automatically remember, "Oh yeah, I'm dreaming now."
Okay. I mean, have you had a lot of lucid dreams?
I have had quite a lot of lucid dreams, yeah.
Okay.
I think and this is kind of this is kind of getting off this a little bit, but I've told people that I feel like there comes a point where and you get to a point in your dreams that you no longer see. Okay, have you've seen like a puppet show when you were a kid, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you remember, or was there ever a time where you actually thought the puppets were real?
Not that I can remember.
Okay, but there probably would be a time if you were young enough, right?
There's a possibility, yeah.
Okay, so imagine the difference between seeing the puppet show and thinking the puppets are real, only seeing the front, and then somebody takes you around the curtain and shows you the puppeteer.
Right.
Okay, so there comes a point in this whole process of lucid dreaming and everything where you no longer see the front, but you see the man behind the curtain.
What does that mean, man?
It means you start categorizing your dreams,
While you're dreaming.
right? And then that's when you either accept or reject. Like you can tell, like I can tell at some point at sometimes I've had the ability to tell identify what was going to be a nightmare before it turned into a nightmare.
Ah, okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I rejected that before it turned into a nightmare, and I actually will wake up if I do that
That's interesting.
because I know I'm not just seeing the dream for the face value of it.
Right. That's really interesting, right? To think that there's this feeling, right? So, like, imagine you're like in a dream state and being able to tell, like, something isn't right. And it's gonna continue to get worse and worse.
Right,
And then being able to stop that before it does get worse
right,
and, like, push the eject button.
right.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah, so it's this is why I think this is one reason why people do lucid dreaming. And then I also think that it's probably scary to a lot of people just because I think a lot of people have these kind of dreams that are maybe they're bad dreams and the dreams are not intense enough to they're not actually don't turn into nightmares but they're still bad dreams.
Mm,
And I think when somebody starts exercising that part of their mind, they become more aware of the bad dreams.
right. I mean, I have no idea, man, but So I think it's really interesting idea though, where people. Okay, so like I've had dreams like this that you're describing, where I've become aware that I'm in the dream, right? And that I'm able to control elements of the dream. I'm able to navigate the dream, but all knowing that I'm in a dream.
Right.
Yeah. So that would have been a lucid dream. Interesting, interesting. I've had, um, should I say? I don't know. No, maybe encounter is the right word. But I've had some scary dreams that, well, if I tell them to people, they'd be like, "That's a dream."
Right.
But I definitely
So what?
knew. I definitely knew I wasn't in a dream. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that goes back to seeing the man behind the curtain,
Right.
where you know you're having an encounter with something, and there's a front there, but at the same time you're able to see through that front.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, lucid dreams. I had to do a little bit more research on that, and maybe we can like come back to this topic unless there's something you want to talk about.
So the thing about image streaming, I did this for the first time in quite a while the other day, and I went into this story about how I was out fishing at this lake,
Mm-hmm.
and I was describing, okay, so the sky is blue and the clouds are vanilla and it all swirls together like some kind of a shake, like a milkshake or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Like Van
Different
Gogh,
colors
like
of a shake
kind of
together,
like Van Gogh's Starry Night, kind of.
sort of.
Okay.
And then the pond, it's sparkling and shimmering and it looks like diamonds, a sea of diamonds
Mm-hmm.
in front of me, the sparkles of the sun. And then in between the sky, the swirly sky and the diamonds is suspended, the sun is suspended. And then as I'm going on through this story, I tell a story about how I catch a catfish and I pull the catfish out of the water, and then all of a sudden, the catfish is suspended between the sky, the swirly sky, and the sparkling diamonds. And then, as the catfish is suspended between these two, and his desires to go below the surface of the diamonds, and then I come over to this pier, and as I stare out into the distance, the sun breaks through the tree line, or the sun breaks through and goes beneath the surface of the diamonds. And as that happens, simultaneously at the same moment, I throw the catfish back into the pond, and at the same moment, the catfish goes under the sea of diamonds as well as the sun does too, and the sun sets and it's dark. So I have this story that just happened, and I mean, obviously didn't plan it or anything, or I just started doing an image streaming, and then this kind of happened.
This story.
Yeah, the story just happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that happened since I started, well, like maybe 1 or 2 days after I started doing this type of thing, I was doing a study about the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32. I was doing this lesson,
Okay.
and I didn't plan this out to happen like this. Okay, so this is the connection that I'm taking it as your brain starts making these kind of connections just spontaneously as you start strengthening this.
Okay.
In Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 6, starting in verse 6. And Jeremiah said, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Behold, Hanamiel, the son of Shallum, thine uncle, shall come unto thee, saying, Buy thee my field that is in Anathoth, for the right of redemption is thine to buy it. So Hanamiel, mine uncle's son, came to me in the court of the prison, according to the word of the Lord, and said unto me, Buy my field, I pray thee, that is in Anathoth, which is in the country of Benjamin, for the right of inheritance or redemption. Right of inheritance or redemption. Right of redemption is thine, and inheritance is thine, and the redemption is thine. Buy it for thyself. Then I knew that this was the word of the Lord, and I bought the field of Hanameel, my uncle's son, that was in Anathoth, and weighed him the money, even 17 shekels of silver. And I subscribed the evidence and sealed it, and took witnesses and weighed him the money in the balance. So I took the evidence of the purchase, both that which was sealed according to the law and custom, and that which was open. And I gave the evidence of the purchase unto Baruch, the son of Neriah, the son of Maaseiah, in the sight of Hanameel, mine uncle's son, and in the presence of the witnesses that subscribed the book of the purchase before all the Jews that sat in the court of the prison. And I charged Baruch before them, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take this evidence of the purchase, both which is sealed and this evidence which is open, and put them in an earthen vessel, that they may continue many days. All right, so the right of redemption is in the Old Testament. If somebody lost their land because they came on hard times, then the next of kin was qualified to go and buy that back. And then that land would stay in the family. It wouldn't do any good for somebody outside of the family to go and buy that, because then it wouldn't be redeeming it to the first family that had it. All right, so it had to be a qualified person to do that. All right, so Leviticus chapter 25, verse 25 says, If thy brother be waxen poor, and hath sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. All right, so it has to be a qualified person. It has to be next of kin. All right, so now compare this to the redemption of humanity. I used to always ask the question, why couldn't, in the Christian faith, why couldn't an angel come and die on the cross? An angel is sinless, right? They're perfect. They've never sinned before. Unless it's a fallen angel.
Yeah.
Why couldn't an angel come and die on the cross? Well, the answer is because it's not next of kin. Adam is the son of God. And also the comparison of Judah and Jerusalem being the wives of God would make Jesus the next of kin, qualified redeemer of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the other thing is, in this scenario, the person is waxed poor. They've come on hard times and they've lost their possession because of their depravity, and we've lost our riches in heaven because of our depravity, and then we're redeemed through the riches of God, like the land is redeemed by the riches of the next of kin, as talking about in Leviticus.
Right.
And then the next thing in Jeremiah is he goes to great measure. Jeremiah is the Redeemer, and he goes to great measure to document his evidence. He takes a document and he has it notarized. He has it signed in the presence of witnesses. And then he takes a sealed copy and an open copy and places both of these into an earthen vessel. And then he charges them and he says, take this evidence so that it can be seen for many days yet to come. All right, so in Romans chapter 9,
In Romans chapter 9.
verse 21, it says, "Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory? Even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles." So we're a vessel that he places the evidence of the riches of God into this vessel for people to observe the evidence.
Right.
And in Mark chapter 16, it's the last chapter of Mark. Verse 14, it says, "Afterward he appeared unto the 11 as they sat at meat, and upbraided them with their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they believed not them which had seen him after he was risen. And he said unto them, Go ye unto all the world, and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils, they shall speak with new tongues, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." So that's a charge for them to go out into all the world and show the evidence for many days to come.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so this whole thing, I mean, like this whole, all these different things just like clicked together.
That makes sense, man.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it just happened. Like I wasn't planning to talk about that day, and then I just started reading into it, and then all of a sudden I was making this connection and this connection and this and this and this like that, and it was after I had started the whole image streaming process and the whole like writing down your dreams and all that stuff.
You know, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like as an artist, so you know, one of the things that I do a lot of writing and poetry, and I do a lot of writing stories, but not just like writing them, but drawing them, right?
Right.
And a lot of times what happens is, so, you know, I like to get, like, when I'm actually drawing, I get, like, right in on the piece of paper. And so a lot of times what I need to do is I need to stop and I need to walk away from it. And same thing with my poetry or with my writing. Sometimes I need to, like, I'm trying to get a certain feeling out
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not coming together. So I need to, like, back off and get away from it.
Right.
And this sort of practice, what happens is that in the process of stopping on one project and going to another project, a lot of times my brain is still working things out in the
Right.
creative process. And as I'm working on another project, it's like it's freed my mind up from having to focus completely on it, which, because I'm doing a conscious effort to try to get it right, it's sort of like it's holding me back. And then what happens is in this process of working on something else creatively, it frees up like this sort of whatever it was. And these ideas can now come together that weren't able to come together
Right.
before. And it sounds to me like as you're doing this image streaming, one of the things that you're doing is you're recalling something that wasn't there, right?
Right.
Which was your dream. I mean, you had the dream, but you didn't wake up or you didn't. There was a time in your life where you didn't focus and try to remember the dreams.
Right.
So it was just kind of like a blank slate there. But it wasn't, because you've always been dreaming. But like as you're able to develop this part of your mind that can recall the dreams, and part of it maybe is you filling in some of the dream. I don't know, but what happens is you're able to make these sort of like connections. So when you're reading the Bible, you're able to maybe put together ideas that maybe have seemed separate before, but
Right.
because you're using this very creative process, it's it's like harnessing this kind of power.
And I think this is the same thing that happened to Rollo Tomasi. He's always talking about connecting the dots.
Right.
And I mean, I don't. That would be interesting for me. I would be curious to know if Rollo Tomasi went through some sort of image streaming process
Hmm.
or some kind of process like this before he started writing his book or his blog.
Right.
That would be interesting to know, like kind of the events of what led up to the
Well, yeah,
blog.
or maybe in the process of writing, he's focusing on one idea, he's focusing on one idea, and then over time, it's interactions.
Right.
Maybe just over time, once you've got an idea down, right?
Right.
You've pulled that idea up because you've went through, you hashed through it exhaustively,
Right.
and then you have this sort of remnant of that idea that lingers. Even though you don't have to go back and read through it because you just have this feeling.
So it's kind of like you have a puzzle, and as you put down one piece and connect two pieces together, you don't lose those two pieces. And then you add more pieces, more and more pieces,
Mhm.
and you haven't connected everything all at once. You've just connected these dots and then left it in place, and then add another connection, and then add another connection.
Right.
And then as you figure things out, then you create a whole picture.
Yeah. I really like this idea of image streaming. Did we intro this?
I don't remember.
All right, guys, welcome to Talk Tactic. We're going to be having a discussion about image streaming. Jonathan has been reading a book. What's the name of the book?
It's an audio program called the Einstein Factor.
The Einstein Factor. And in this Einstein Factor, one of the parts of it is talking about image streaming. And it's this process where you start to recall the dreams that you used to have. And you do this on a sort of daily, weekly basis. And as you do that, you get better and better and better at it, at recalling things. And the interesting thing that Johnny starts to mention is that this process has actually branched out into other areas of his life where he's able to put these sort of maybe disparate ideas and solidify them into a really cool thought. Maybe you can give us some examples of that.
Okay, this video is connected to the video that we did about the power of routines as a cumulative,
Mm-hmm.
because in that video we had some different stages. We had 3 stages in that video. One was identifying the different routines that are harmful and the ones that are beneficial. And then the second stage was cutting out the harmful ones and adding in the beneficial ones, or enhancing a beneficial one that you already have. And then stage 3 is the action that you took from stage 2 has been in effect for some time, and there's been an accumulative effect, and you see a noticeable change in your environment because of that. So these 3 stages. Now, what we're talking about today, the image streaming, is a possible routine. It's an example of a possible routine for you to observe.
Right, and the interesting thing about image streaming is that it's not a typical routine that people talk about when they think about improving themselves. But what I like about it is that it sort of deals in improving your cognitive ability to think about and put structure to abstractions. And a lot of times people who don't appreciate art really have a hard time with abstractions.
Right.
And I feel like those same people have a hard time with philosophy. So like a lot of times in philosophy you think it's a very logical step by step process. And I feel like the beginning of philosophy is, right? Like prove how, like from the beginning, prove, right? Your steps. But there's like this realm where in your proof that the beginning, if you go just below that, is really abstract, right? And if you keep extrapolating out your proofs, it gets to a point where it also becomes very abstract, right? It's like something simple like a number one, like as in 1 point on a line, right? But like imagine that point being infinitely small, right?
Right.
Infinitely, right? So it becomes an abstract idea, no longer something that's real or that's observable. And what I think is interesting about this image streaming is that it is a way to work on that part of your mind
Right.
that deals with abstracts. And this is one of these cool like routines that you can implement to see if you enjoy it doing it.
Right.
That is maybe not the normal sort of thing that people think of when it comes to self improvement.
Well, this is one thing that they're talking about in this course is Einstein was doing this. He was imagining that he was riding on a light beam and holding a mirror, and then he would ask, "Can I see my face in the mirror? Because I'm traveling at the speed of light."
Right. That's cool. Yeah. So, should we close out?
Yeah, let's close it out.
Go ahead, man. Or you want me to do it?
Okay, I'll do it. This wraps up our video about image streaming. And if you would like more information about that, you should go on Amazon and check out the course, The Einstein Factor. It's an audio CD course. And if you guys are already doing this, or if you have had experience with this, leave us a comment in the comment section and let us know about your experience with image streaming. And this is an example of a routine, so it correlates back to our video about routines. So we would like to hear from you guys. Leave a comment and let us know some topics that you would like us to cover. And hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our first 100 subscribers.